Surprise, motherfucker.
It's complicated. I just bet you all weren't expecting to hear from me. Happy fucking New Year, everybody. Happy New Year. We made it. We made it to the new year. It's 2021, so everything's going to be perfect. COVID is gone. There are no problems because, 2020 was such shit that the moment it hit midnight in 2021, everything was fucking fine, right? It's totally fine. That's how it works, right? Man, do I have some news for you. You need to keep your eyes open over the next month, especially if you're in the US, although I know the whole world is watching with what's going on. But we'll get into that in a moment. Stay tuned, because what we're going to be talking about tonight are a couple different interesting topics. We're going to talk about China. We're going to talk about COVID. We're going to talk about Donald Trump. We're going to talk about Bitcoin. And we're going to talk about Jake and Paul Logan, oh my God, which is related to Donald Trump. Just hold on and you check it all out. Okay, let's get started with one of my favorite topics these days. It's probably been one of my favorite topics for the past 5, 6, 7 years, which is China, which is going to feed into COVID in a moment. But I don't think a lot of Western let me caveat that. I don't think a lot of Americans are fully aware of what is going on with China, or what China's motivations are, or some of the things that they're doing around the world. They are actually practicing neocolonialism. They've learned a lot from the American and British past, and they're taking everything that they've learned and they're expanding upon it. Now, I know a lot of my acquaintances who are self-proclaimed socialists and communists who absolutely hate the United States of America, which I have my problems with the United States of America, but capitalism is not one of them. They're going to say, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Well, I say what's good for the gander is good for the goose, but that's just me. And that, how can we point fingers at other countries when what they're doing when we've done so much in the past? And I always want to come back with we've done bad things and we should atone for them. And maybe not necessarily atone for them, because I don't think we can always atone for things that we've done when the people are dead. And that's another whole long story that we could get in talking about reparations and stuff like that, for slavery. But I think you do need to acknowledge the past and the wrongs that you've done, and acknowledge it and give closure to that and not repeat it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it makes it right for other people to do. Like, we should try to strive to be better. Everyone should be better than the next person. And when I say that, I don't mean like better as in like snooty, your nose up. I mean, be a better person, be a better human being, be a better country. And China, I'm going to get in trouble for this. I'm never going to be able to travel through that country again, even though I do try to avoid it when I'm on my international travels, just because it freaks me out so much. But China has definitely been practicing a lot of neo-economic colonialism, and they're just intensifying. And, COVID kind of threw them for a loop, because when I've spoken about China in the past, I know that I'm always picking on them, because I've always said that, they don't operate on a year plan or a 4-year plan or a 5-year plan. I mean, if you look at what we do in the US and even in the UK to an extent, when you have governments that have this flip-flopping of who's in control, be it like the Congress or the Parliament, who's the prime minister, who's the president, when you have a quote-unquote democracy, you tend to see things kind of flip-flop, and go to extremes. A good example would be, recently in the United States, we went from Obama to Trump. Those are two fucking extremes. They are not on the same line, no matter what anybody says. I'll fucking fight you to death on that one. They're not on the same side, or even remotely the same. They're extremes. But then when you have countries where you have like presidents for life, or they somehow keep getting reelected, I'm looking at you, Russia. And I'm definitely looking at you, at China. You tend to see much longer term plans played out. again, the United States, and I want to say that, the UK and some other Western countries tend to operate for as long until the next election cycle. I always think about the Janet Jackson song, like, what have you done for me lately? Because once you get to the next election cycle, it's another set of promises. Some are brand new, some are old, but half of them are always forgotten and something else comes up. I mean, that is so true for the United States. That is not true for China. China makes 100-year plans, 500 years plans. And China has been trying to become the world's superpower. And the way they're doing this is economically. So I want to say it was like in 2013, China signed this Belt and Road Initiative. And basically what they wanted to do was to do investments and development strategies in 70 countries and international organizations. Why would they want to do that? Well, if you're investing in other countries, that gives you a foothold, and it kind of like, I don't want to say it kind of, but it makes people kind of holding to you when you've invested in them and given them money to improve their lives. And you could say, hey, what's wrong with improving people's lives? There's nothing wrong with improving people's lives unless they got to pay for it on the other side of it and they don't know it yet. So anyways, China has done a lot of investment in Southeast Asia, Africa, and South America. They've even done some investment in Europe. They've done a lot of monetary investments and infrastructure investments. China tends to be more interested in the infrastructure investments, and I'll get to that. What China gets when they're investing in other countries is, they can charge higher interest rates on the investments or the loans that they're giving the other countries. But what they also do is they will give investments for infrastructure. Usually when they're investing in infrastructure, they require the local federal governments to give leaseholds of anywhere from like 50 to 100 years. What does that mean? What that means is that if China comes and says, hey, we're going to build you a railroad, they own the rail line. They own the land. I don't want to say own. They have a leasehold, which is not the same as owning, but the local government can't do anything about it. Local people can't do anything about it. It's beholden to China for 50 to 100 years or plus, depending on what the leasehold is for. So basically, China controls that area around the infrastructure projects that they've put in. They've been very interested in doing a lot of infrastructure in regards to energy, like hydroelectric dams. They've been interested in investing in nuclear power in other countries, and also just monetary investments just to make improvements. Now, this is kind of concerning because if they own the land and they're doing the investment for the infrastructure, what has been said and what the idea is that China is slowly trying to build, number one, their own kind of economic club without the United States or without other Western countries involved, so that they can control the international, financial systems, because we are very dependent still on the dollar, which Bitcoin, who knows, maybe Bitcoin might take that over. I'm not a finance person, but we'll talk about Bitcoin in a moment. But basically being able to make deals and trades and stuff without being part of, the normal systems that you see France, United States, Germany, and the usual suspects a part of. When you are offering loans or updating infrastructure to impoverished people, they become very happy. And there's, what they should be. If you get access to clean water and being able to travel more easily across the country, then of course you're going to be happy about that. And it's going to give you the warm fuzzies forever helped you with that. But as I said, you always pay on the back end. Nothing in this world comes for free. So, as I said, they have done a lot of investing in projects across the United States, across the world. And I'll give you a couple examples. Like in Africa, Kenya, they built the they are building the Mombasa Nairobi Railway at 3.2 billion US dollars. Let me repeat that again. They've invested 3.2 billion US dollars in order to build this railway. The interesting thing is that in 2019, they stopped 75 miles short of Nairobi of finishing the railway. They could say they were worried about getting the money back from Kenya, but I also think that COVID had a lot to do with that happening in 2019, with not wanting to spend so much money out when you're in the middle of a crisis in your own country. They've built in Nigeria, they built a railway there. They've also provided satellite television to 10,000 remote African villages, which, hey, it's great to have television for the educational prospects, but one of the best way to run propaganda is through a television station, the boob tube. That's how we get our propaganda. That's how Trump was elected. But I digress. Not really. I'll loop this all up in the end. So, and in Uganda, they've built 2 hydroelectric projects, and they granted loans that covered more than 85% of the funding for both of those projects, and there's more projects planned. In North and South America, they've invested in Argentina with 2 hydroelectric dams. And here's one that's super interesting. They've also invested $50 billion as far as the numbers in 2017. They've invested $50 billion, they've given $50 billion worth of loans. And the reason why they gave the loans is because they're very interested in the thorium deposits for nuclear reactors. They want their access on that. They want their hands on that. China wants to have access to that. And part of the deal was that 500,000 Chinese came to relocate to the country of Venezuela to help with mapping, the geology mapping to find out where the thorium deposits are for nuclear reactors, which, if you think of nuclear reactors, you also think of nuclear weapons. That's just how I go with that. And remember, if China ends up building a nuclear reactor, or they end up finding a mine with the thorium deposits, they will control that mine or reactor for 50 to 100 years. That's the deal of when you deal with China. So many people seem to be, so many impoverished countries seem to be just jumping on that because they need the money and they see the initial improvements without knowing what they owe. Is this any different than what the United States has done in the past? Yes and no. Yes and no. Again, I'm not going to make excuses for some of the actions of the United States, but this is very concerning because this has it's all strategic what China's trying to do, because they don't want to just compete with the United States. They would like to destroy the United States, which we're doing a good job of doing that ourselves. You can sit there and just watch us fight and we're falling apart as it is. But these all have, military ramifications besides just economic ones for China, because a lot of these countries that China, is investing in. My English, I need to work on that. There's no hope for some of them to pay it back. So it's 100% strategic for China to make these investments because they get access to the land, which means they can move troops, they can have a military base, all that kind of fun stuff. And no, this is not conspiracy theory. These are all things that you can look up yourself if you take some time. So, this kind of flows into me talking about COVID for a moment because, as I was joking earlier, it's 2021, so COVID's completely over. And now, which no, it's not. People, please wear a mask still. It's going to be a while before, everybody gets vaccinated. So don't be an asshole and please wear a mask. But besides that, did China know about COVID? And could they have done something about it? I know I've touched on this before, but the more I think about how China operates and what is very good from a strategic perspective, yes, China knew. China 100% knew there was a problem, and China purposely did not say anything to the rest of the world, because let's think about this for a second. If you have, let's say, a strategic mind or a military mind, or are worried about making sure that you have status in the world and are prepared, why, when you have a virus that's affecting everybody so quickly and so catastrophically, which if it gets out of control can affect your military readiness, why would you tell any other countries what was going on about that if you're a secretive society or secretive-ish society who's hell-bent on making sure that you have the status and the clout in the world? Why would you tell anybody? Because now we know that you have a biological problem that's going on in your country that could be affecting your military readiness, because you may have soldiers that are sick and not able to perform, people that are not able to support the military or food or any of that stuff, because people are sick with a virus that you have no cure for and you're not too sure about. So it would be in your best interest to not say anything and make sure everybody gets the same shit that you have, because that kind of puts everybody on even footing. And I know this sounds awful and this sounds terrible. Why would anybody do that? But you have to think of a game of kings. I would say kings and queens, but it's usually been a game of kings, although there's been a few queens. It's a game of ruling. It's a game of being the most powerful in the world. And like it or not, whoever's got the biggest military strength and the most money wins. So if you've got a virus that's ravishing you and you don't know where it came from and you have no cure and it could affect your military readiness, like hell, you're going to say something about it to somebody else when you perceive everybody else as a competitor. You want to make sure that they got what you have, because it levels the playing field. And I just wanted to mention that because I think it's really important that we keep this, this conversation going on. It's not for me to vilify Chinese people, because the Chinese people are wonderful. I have quite a few friends in mainland China. I don't get to talk to them like I used to because it's very difficult to speak to them. Sorry about the background noise. It's very difficult to speak to them since they're not on Facebook, and I've had trouble adding the app for speaking. I think it's WeChat or something like that. Oh my God, I'm so sorry about that background noise. It seems I've been living here for almost 15 years, and we must have the fire department show up in the wintertime on this block at least once a month. So this is January, so it's about time for them to drive up my one-way street and make as much noise as possible. I'm going to pause this for a moment, and then I'll get started again. And I think, that the fire engines are gone. I think we're going to get lucky now, or unlucky, because I think the cat's going to start up in a moment. But, going back to what I was saying is that it just makes strategic sense that if you've got some sort of disease going on in your country and you want to make sure that you still have an advantage, or you want to make sure, or even not an advantage, that everything's fair and equal, you let that virus get out and you make sure everybody else has to deal with the same shit that you're dealing with. That's just good way of playing chess. It's just a good move all around. Anyways, that's enough about China, and that's enough about COVID, which is going to lead me into talking about Donald Trump. And I don't really want to talk about him too much, because he's actually going to be the intro into me talking about Jake and Paul Logan. Oh my fucking God, I can't believe I'm giving them some of my breath, but here we go. He still hasn't conceded the election. Y'all know that. Everybody knows he hasn't done it. Now he's just, as I record this, just tapes came out from the Washington Post about him trying to pressure Georgia into changing the votes again. And, at the end of the day, I blame y'all. I blame the media, and I blame the stupidity of Americans for why this motherfucker got elected, because he never should have been elected. And if it had been even like 15 years ago, 10 years ago, he never would have been elected. The problem is that people took him seriously, or maybe they didn't take him seriously. It was funny. So he kept getting media attention. And with the media attention, he got more attention from people who would have never paid attention. And that is how he got elected the first time. Plus other things that probably helped, which we won't talk about. But I never understood why he was getting any attention from the media or was taken seriously, because that is how people are legitimized, is when you have a fool that's being taken for an expert, and when they're on TV, when they're on the news and stuff, you start taking as if they're real people and not just a fool. That gives them attention, that gives them legitimacy. And that is how Donald Trump got elected. We could sit there and say that like he appealed to the populace and, the everyman, la, 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 wow, 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 whatever the fuck. No, wrong. Maybe a little bit. But he wouldn't have been able to appeal to anybody if the media had never given him some fucking attention to begin with. Which kind of leads me into Jake and Paul Logan. What the fuck is going on there? I hate the fact that I have to bring this up, but I don't even remember, because to me, they're just like same, I won't say what I really think, but these two dudes who, like, I don't know why they get attention, or why they're not even attractive. Like, I know they must have gotten their YouTube channels and stuff because they were like, the girls were like, oh my God, they're so hot. And I know that kids just like people throwing shit in pools and stupid. So that's how they got attention. But now they're fighting, either, well, we won't talk about Ben Askren, but they're fighting Ben Askren, who's quote unquote retired, and Mayweather, who's quote unquote retired, in these exhibition matches. And I don't understand why Askren or Mayweather is even giving these people the time of day, which I knew that this was going to happen when Tyson, I forgot, was it Paul Logan? I don't remember who it was, but in the last, he was fighting on the same card as Tyson, and Tyson gave some legitimacy for that, and you don't do that. You don't do that, because once you do that, once the media gets involved, then we start giving people attention, and then it never ends. And that is how we got Donald Trump. I understand where Mike Tyson was coming from, because boxing since the 80s has definitely lost its pizzazz and its interest. It's getting a little bit better, but people are more interested in watching MMA. If you had a choice between watching a boxing match and an MMA match, most people are going to go with an MMA match. Most people know more MMA fighters than they actually, or UFC fighters specifically, than they know they can name off 5 boxers. I don't think I can even name 5 boxers, and I actually enjoy watching boxing when I have access to it. I prefer watching Muay Thai to watching MMA now, but it's just because I don't like the UFC. And I might be getting dragged back on that, and that's going to be a story for another time. Because as much as I've tried to leave MMA Twitter and MMA behind, all of a sudden I'm starting to have access to stuff again. And I don't know. We'll talk about it another time. But going back to Jake and Paul Logan, Tyson saying that they're making boxing exciting again. I don't know about that, because I put it maybe one level up above celebrity boxing, just because of the fact that you have Askren and you have Floyd Mayweather, who maybe they're both retired. They're still legitimate fighters. They were fighters. They really were professional fighters at some point in time, and still are, with YouTube stars who are fucking idiots. I don't get it. I don't get it. And this goes back to, you just cannot give idiots attention because it makes them legitimate, and then they never go away. Hence Donald Trump. Which, to go back to Donald Trump and what I started out with saying, keep your eye on the next month. If you think this clown show is just about done, no. We got 3 more weeks of hell to go. And I guarantee you this show is just going to get more and more ridiculous. And I'm not looking forward to, but I'm very curious to see what's going to happen on January 6th. This week is going to be something else, between the Proud Boys coming back to Washington, D.C., the Georgia runoff elections, and certifying the electoral votes in Congress. It's going to be a wild friggin' week, which, talking about wild, I'm going into Bitcoin now. Bitcoin has been up by 13% since the beginning of the year. Now, the beginning of the year was only 3 days ago. So if you invested in Bitcoin on January 1st, you'd be up 13% right now. Why is that going on? My hunch is that people are getting their stimulus, people are hurting, and they think it's a get-rich-quick scheme. So people are throwing their money into Bitcoin right now, and that's why we've got to run on it. Long term, do I think Bitcoin can sustain the prices? I think right now, $33,000 of coin, something like that. Do I think that those numbers are reasonable and can be, held by Bitcoin? I think so, but I don't think right now. A year ago, because I invested in Bitcoin, and don't get excited, guys, it was like $20. I invested in Bitcoin last year in I'm thinking here. No. Maybe I invested in 2018. I think I did. I think I invested in 2018. I just know for the longest time that it was running at $7,000 a coin, and now it's $33,000 a coin. That's insane. In 2 years. Not even 2 years, like a year and a half. That's just friggin' insane. This is not me advocating or not advocating for Bitcoin. It's just Jesus Christ, this is insane. And my concern again is that you have people who do not understand finances or economics who are running to invest in Bitcoin because it is so fucking easy. There was a time, I remember, when you wanted to make investments, it was kind of difficult to do it. You kind of had to know what you were doing. and it costs money to do it. And now with like tools such as Webull and Robinhood, which I do use Robinhood, and Coinbase, which if you're going to use anything, don't fucking use Coinbase, because they don't pay women and people of color the same amount that they pay other people. That was in the news recently. Go look it up. I had some stuff in Coinbase. I pulled it out just because I don't deal with assholes if I don't have to. But it is ridiculously easy to invest in these things. And it's just, they're saying that when you use the Robinhood app, it's kind of like gambling or like an e-game. And I get that. Like when I logged into it yesterday, there were snowflakes on the app, and which is kind of weird for a financial app. But yeah, at the same time, I wish there was better financial education for everybody in the United States. That would help go a long way. I know I didn't have it, but I also believe that you have the opportunity and the ability to be able to research stuff before you do it. So I'm speaking on both sides of my mouth up here. And that's another whole topic. I think it has a lot to do with age and maturity with that. But I really feel for people right now. I hope it works out for them if they've invested their stimulus checks hoping that they're going to become a millionaire from them. That's probably not going to happen. I have another acquaintance of mine who he says he's up $3,000 right now. So I haven't been able to figure out how much he actually invested. I probably could if I decided to do some math. But he's hoping that the housing market completely falls down, that the Bitcoin continues to go up so that he can buy a house off Bitcoin. No comment on that one. No comment there. But yeah, things are pretty wild out there, with Bitcoin right now, and the stimulus and the president, and COVID, and China. Yeah. I think I'm done. I don't think I have anything else to talk about tonight. This was kind of, I wouldn't say it's a one-off, but it was kind of, and it wasn't even exactly spontaneous. I kind of knew I was going to do a posting. If you read my whiny blog post from a couple days ago, I just kind of said, fuck it, I'm going to do what I want to do anyway. So if you listen to this and you've stayed through to the end of this, I completely fucking appreciate it. Thank you very much. Will there be more of these? I'm not going to answer that. I know a lot of things that y'all don't know right now. And the only way you're going to find out is if you stick around. Anyways, yeah. I'm wishing you all a very happy new year. I'm hoping that you stay safe. I'm hoping that you stay healthy. I want you to hold on tight, because I think we've got another 6 weeks of crazy to get through. I think things will start to look better by the end of the year, so long as we get through the crazy of the next 6 weeks in a good way. I'm feeling hopeful, but I'm being smart about it. And I hope you are too. Once again, thanks for listening, and I hope to chat with you all again soon. Bye.